Sure, a little bit of muck and dust fell out the skies one day. It nestled down in Digbus beside the River Ray. They gave it Nelson's statue, the bull ring and big brown. And when they had it finished, why, they called it Brummies.
Birmingham, Centenary Square, flanked by the International Convention Centre. Together, the symbols of a new Birmingham, thrusting itself forward to the 21st century, determined to forge for itself a new image. But it wasn't always like that. The fame of Birmingham was gained by the making of things. And one of the few people who've captured the excitement, the vitality, the enthusiasm of a manufacturing city was Charles Dickens. Now, not many people associate Dickens with Birmingham. All of his novels are set in London, but Dickens knew Birmingham intimately. As they rattled through the narrow thoroughfares, leading to the heart of the turmoil, the sights and sounds of earnest occupation struck more forcibly upon the senses. The streets were thronged with working people. Lights gleamed from the long casement windows in the attic stories, and the hum of labour resounded from every house. The fires, whose lurid sullen lights had been visible for miles, blazed fiercely up in the great works and the factories of the town. The din of hammers, the rushing of steam, and the dead, heavy clanking of the engines was the harsh music which arose from every quarter.
Literally a city of 1,000 trades, and an enormous amount of skills in its people, probably unparalleled anywhere I've ever been in the world.
Manufacturing means the making of goods to provide a better life for other people. We do that very well in Birmingham. We've done it all through since the Industrial Revolution.
In engineering, what is, I think, somewhat disparagingly referred to as metal bashing, I think it's an ideal place because you've got people here with terrific skills in their hand.
I am a jolly roving blade, they call me jack of all trades. I always fix me chief delights, kissing off the fair maids. To Brummies I did set out to seek a situation. I'd often heard folks say it was the workshop of the nation. Oh, I'm the lad to try me hand at any job that's well paid. And if you want to know me name, Brummie Jack of all trades. In Smallbrook Street made candlesticks, Worcester Street a broker, in Floodgate Street made fire irons, shovel tongues and poker. In Ham Street was a dialist, in Newhall Street die sinker, in New Street drove a hackney coach, in Moore Street was a printer. Yes, I'm the lad to try me hand at any job that's well paid, and if you want to know me name, Brummie Jack of all trades.
Birmingham, Derry's End High Street today. Bustling, busy and noisy, and it's always been like that, as far back as the 14th century, when the Old Crown was first built. It's been a familiar landmark all those years. Now it's been refurbished by the Brennan family, exposing the original beams and the original Watland door.
Don't get started, Alex.
Cheers, back.
I came through as pretty a street as ever I've entered. As I remember, that street be called Dirty. There be many smiths in the town that make all manner of cutting tools, and there are many nailers and a great many lorrimers. John Leland, describing Derry's End High Street in 1538. Birmingham was a magnet for thousands of families. They poured into the city from the countryside of Warwickshire and Worcestershire. And when they got here, they brought with them their words, long-standing words. When they cried, they blarted. When they were unhappy, they had a bust-up. They put their rubbish in the miskins and they threw their water down the sough. If they didn't like somebody, they wouldn't cutter them. They went down the road, round the corner into the huckster shop where they got all the little goods that they needed. They scratched to try and make a living. They toiled and they grafted and they coloured in all the factories that turned out all the goods that made Birmingham world famous. And when they were really happy, they were in their oil tut. Skilled workers abounded in the city, but that didn't mean that poverty was absent. Many of the artisans were in intermittent employment, and there were lots of unskilled workers, men, women and children in Birmingham, who didn't earn much money. All of these people had to live in badly built, insanitary back-to-backs such as these, some of the last remaining back-to-backs in Birmingham. Tiny two-bedroomed houses, an attic, one room below and one room only downstairs. A room that was multifunctional, kitchen, living room, dining room, even a workroom. Approached up an entry that brought you from the street to the yard itself. And then in the yard we have the miskins, where all the rubbish was put, the communal brewers, the washhouse, where the women did their washing, and besides them, the lavatories. 2, perhaps 3 lavatories for 6 or more families. This was the lifestyle that hundreds of thousands of Brummies experienced until the last redevelopment schemes of the 1960s. Lily Perry, this is a brewers.
A washhouse.
A washhouse.
A brewers.
What was it like on wash day?
Lovely. I loved it. I loved me old maid and the old drum. But it was getting the water up and waiting. Put the lively Polly in, Penny. Get your water up, put it in the maiding tub. Bang, bang, bang. Swill it, put it in the rubbing tub. Scrub it. Swill it again, put it in the boiler. When it boiled, you got it out. Then you had another dough.
What about the ironing?
Who said that? That done the next day.
Did your mum take in washing?
Yes, from morning till night. From morning till night, by candlelight.
Our mangle, that was a gem. The rollers were lovely and white. Monday morning it would go to work, mangling from morning till night. The brewhouse, that was our treasure. It had a lovely boiler, you see. Light the fire underneath it, then have a quick cup of tea. The clothes, they would all bubble and come out as white as snow. It was really hard work, but I loved it. I did. I should know. Bath night was always hectic. We had no bathroom. Oh no. We had a tin bath with a hole in, and up to the hole the water would go.
I'd go back tomorrow. I would. We had to rough it, but that was it. It was what you was born for.
Well, I'm proud to be a Brummie, although it was hard in them days. We wasn't rich with money and things, but we was rich in other ways.
The environment might have been dark and dreary, but the Brummies of the back-to-backs knew how to bond together to make communities, and they knew how to have a knees up. And where better to have a good time than in your own street? Royal celebrations were always a good excuse for a do, but sometimes there were even parties organised by the city, like in 1938, when Birmingham celebrated 100 years as a borough with its own council. The pageant focused on Aston Park, and it featured a bewildering parade of events from the city's history.
And you can see the palm trees swaying down in Summer Lane. Each Saturday night there'll be a celebration. See them jumping bottles and the salutation. There ain't no snow on snowing, no need to catch a train to your southern home where the weather is warm. It's always summer in Summer Lane.
Summer Lane, one of the working class heartlands of Birmingham, reputed to be the toughest street in Brummagem. Most of the people had hearts of gold, but they knew how to handle themselves. And one who could was Lizzie Murphy, who had a fight with a famed fighting woman, Annie Moran, the mother of Owen Moran, one of the greatest boxers England has ever produced. And here with me is Kathleen Adams, the granddaughter of Lizzie Murphy herself.
Yes, that's true. And Lizzie Murphy was some tough woman, I can tell you now.
The fight promoter, if that's the word, was the landlord of this pub. and he put up a purse of a crate of stout to the winner.
Up the side of the grove, the old gaffer put all the crates to make a ring, and everybody stood around it. So stripped down to the way she did. She didn't care who was looking. Mind, she had an old vest on, God knows what, you know. Stripped to the waist, and there they was, they had a good old fight. Old Lance got stuck in. Lizzie had a couple of boys on her like that. But in the second round, she just knocked her clean out. Completely knocked her out.
It's always summer in summer.
This is one of the most famous images of early 19th century Birmingham, the bull ring, drawn by David Cox, the son of a Birmingham whitesmith. Stephen Wildman, you're curator of prints and drawings here. Tell me, how do we know this is actually how the bull ring looked?
Cox was commissioned to do this image for a book called Graphic Illustrations of Warwickshire. So it had to look real, and it was a place that he knew well, although he wasn't living in Birmingham at that time. And on one of his visits to Birmingham, he came up and drew this preliminary drawing on a piece of paper with an 1825 watermark, which just gave him the amount of architectural information he needed, so he knew that was accurate. And then he produced this sepia drawing with a lot more detail, same size as the print, which is what his friend William Radcliffe needed for all the detail to put into that engraving. Steel engraving, making this kind of illustration after other artists' work, was one of the great things that came out of the Birmingham metal industries.
What was the relationship like between the artist and the engraver?
Sometimes artists didn't get on too well with the engravers who were doing their work. Turner was notorious for being very difficult. But in this case, David Cox was working for and with an old family friend, William Radcliffe. So the relationship was very good. There is correspondence about the detail, for instance, of the dead poultry in the foreground of this image. So these two work very well together. And the result is that he produces this marvellous image that is still Cox's picture, but it's got Radcliffe's eye for detail and quality as well. Cox provides him with a picture of people. Radcliffe, if you like, turns them into real Brummies.
When I was a lad, I'd go with my dad each Saturday night to the bull ring, dressed up spick and span for a ride on the tram to a Saturday night in the bull ring. Well, my dad, he was great, 'cause he knew who was who, all the people to see, all the places to go, hear the Solly-Ann band, and just hold his hand on a Saturday night in the bull ring. For money and gain, there was a man tied in chain on a Saturday night in the bull ring. And there were chickens and flowers by St. Martin's Towers on a Saturday night in the bull ring.
My family have been here a good many years, including my grandmother, just over 100 years. But I've only been up since I've been about 17 and I'm 68 now. But it's changed, you know. But we want it to stay as it is because this is the way we want it, this is the way we like it.
As a 10-year-old, I was getting £2 for a Saturday, which was a hell of a lot of money. I mean, when I was 15, I started working out, I got £3 for a 48-hour week, which tells you how much £2 was worth in 1955.
We're all separate businesses. We're all trying and plying for our own trade here. I hope I give a bit of myself to my customers and a little bit of my own personality.
Yourself sick for the rest of the week on a Saturday night in the bull ring. Memories fade, but we remember them days, them Saturday nights in the bull ring. But the bulldozers came, and it wasn't the same on a Saturday night in the bull ring. Brummie's heart was torn out, I feel, and replaced with plastic and concrete and steel. It's a crime, it's a shame, it's progress to blame for spoiling old Birmingham's bull ring.
During the 1950s and 60s, the developers' bulldozers swept through Birmingham, destroying many of our finest and oldest buildings. But this is one that survived. Built originally at the turn of the century as Rowton House, it provided good quality lodgings for respectable working men who were tramping the country looking for work. By the 1950s, it had degenerated into a doss house, but now it's been transformed into a hotel for the growing convention and tourist trade. Eddie Jefferson, what was your vision for this place?
A budget hotel. You know, both myself and my partners travelled all around the country and paid a lot of money in various hotels, and we could see that it could be done at a more competitive price.
What kind of problems did you come across in redeveloping the building?
Well, all sorts of problems really, being a listed building. Obviously we wanted to retain the character of the building, but at the same time it all has to fit with the modern world we live in.
Not a bad job, eh? Our granddad Chinn was an illegal street bookmaker. He used to take bets here in Studley Street and pay out from the gate behind me. But like all other families, my family didn't come from Birmingham. They moved here from the countryside. In fact, over the last 250 years, we've travelled 2.5 miles from King's Heath into Sparkbrook and back out again to Moseley in the 50s, as Dad was doing quite well as an illegal bookmaker like my granddad. But English people weren't the only ones who came to Birmingham. There were Welsh from Brecon and Radnorshire. There were Irish people from Dublin and from the west from Roscommon, Mayo, Galway and Sligo. There were Italians from the area around Monte Cassino. And then, since the Second World War, other people have come further distances to Birmingham. Afro-Caribbeans from Jamaica and Barbados, and South Asian people from India, Bangladesh and Pakistan, all bringing their talents and skills to this city. Mohammed Ajaib, you are credited with bringing Baltis to Birmingham. How did you all get started?
Oh, I started Balti in 1982. Baltis means no knife and forks. Balti means no license. Just as a traditional.
Yeah.
You eat with the hands.
Yes.
And you enjoy your meal, you know. When we provide a curried naan with Balti and people, the naans that just come straight away from oven, you know,
yes.
clay ovens. They're all beautiful herbs and spices in the Balti. And people just tell to other people, and people tell to other people, now is a Balti is popular all over the country. Not in, before we say the Balti is a Brummies, but
yes.
now is a Balti is all Europe, all UKs, you know. And it's a very fantastic, this is a food. Everywhere you can go, you can see the Balti, yes.
I bet you wish you could have copyrighted the idea, don't you?
Actually, I didn't think on that time, you know, but now it's too late, you know. But everybody on same track, you know.
Jeff Yap, everybody knows Birmingham's Chinese Quarter, but what brought the Chinese to this part of town?
Well, the reason why they came to this part of Birmingham is because there was a provision shop that sells Chinese provision.
Yes.
And it was based in Bromsgrove Street.
Right.
Most Chinese cooking need Chinese provisions like sauces
yes.
of different variety that the person who had this Chinese grocery shop, you know, imported from China and from Hong Kong and from the Far East.
Really?
And that's the reason why the people congregated around this area, and that's how the Chinese community grew from there.
Do many of the Chinese live in this area, or are they spread out?
They are spread out. No, you can hardly find any Chinese living in the city centre.
Yes.
But they live, I would say, in the region of about 10-mile radius of Birmingham.
Right. How many people today know that Brum had its own Italian quarter, centred on Duddeston Row and Bartholomew Street?
We grew up with our own, if you'd like to say that. So it was a kind of a little Italy.
Yeah.
All the way along Bartholomew Street there was Italians with the odd Englishman
yes,
and one black man, Mr. White. And he was very well respected as well.
Yeah.
And down Duddeston Row, it's now called Albert Street, down to Curzon Street, there was all Italians on both sides there. Beatties, relations, cousins and aunties, and was your granddad?
My gran and granddad, yeah.
We was sort of first line family. My dad and mum had come from Italy in 1898 and settled down on the corner there.
But our dad was born in Italy and he was one when they came here, but my grandparents always spoke Italian.
There was ice cream merchants in the summer, baked potatoes in the winter, playing accordions, always something. Joe's family, I remember them, he'd moved by the time I remember them, across the road. But I always remember him making the ice cream freezers. Used to watch him making them through the window of the shop, and other metal work, of course. But everybody was always working.
And I used to do the floors, terrazzo
terrazzo
floors.
floors.
That was the main thing,
Yeah,
one
marble.
of the main things. Everybody knew each other, everybody. And there's not many, like I say, of us left now, is there?
Hockley was mostly Dublin. See, they were all like Sparkbrook and that. There's a lot of west of Ireland and different, you know. But we were mostly Dublin. And the first thing a Dublin bloke would come to Birmingham and he'd find out about Shamrock Rovers and he'd be down looking for the game. And we give him a trial, and if he was all right, he was in. It was a football club originally, and then it became a social club. We had a social Saturday and Sunday night, sing song, and sometimes it'd be a bit of a fight. That was usual.
Hi, Carl.
How are you? Ray Rosen, tell me, what was Ellis Street like when you was a kid?
Well, the school was at the back of me, where I'm standing now, and the junior school was over there to my right.
Yeah.
And Ellis Street here, my grandparents lived up in 29 Ellis Street, and then there was a factory that made frames.
Yes.
Picture frames. And all the rest was houses. The little huckster shops were down below Ellis Street.
Did they speak Yiddish amongst themselves?
Most of them spoke Yiddish, yes, nearly all spoke Yiddish.
Was there much interaction with the English people that lived around you?
Oh, yes. Mrs. Cox lived next door.
Yeah?
Yes, she was always in and out, just the same as anybody else. Oh, there was no anti-Semitism here at that particular time, although it was about.
Yes.
I won't kid myself that it wasn't. But the actual neighbours were not anti-Semites.
Yeah.
No, they lived as Brummies.
Why did they settle in Ellis Street, do you think?
Well, they settled here because of the synagogue being here.
Yeah.
And they always settled where the shops were, because the shops were in Holloway Head and Her Street.
Yes.
And down Smallbrook Street, as
Yes.
it was. And they could get everything there that was kosher.
Right.
The butcher shops were there.
Yeah.
About 5 altogether, actually, in this particular area. And the delicatessen shops were here, and of course the synagogue.
So that was the key?
That was the key, yes.
Mhm.
And the school.
Right.
For the children to
Yeah.
be educated. That was the most important part. The children had to be educated.
Valerie Evans, you're a Welsh school teacher, and when I was a kid, every other teacher seemed to be Welsh. Why?
Well, you might say, of course, that the Welsh are desperately intelligent and they go into that particular sort of profession. But I have a number of ideas about that. No real evidence at all. Certainly we had a tremendous number of people who had qualifications, decided to teach. There weren't enough jobs in Wales, and so out they went. But for people who desperately wanted to get back to Wales, Birmingham was very, very close.
Right.
No distance at all. Now, another theory, and I'm sure the Birmingham councillors will deny this furiously, how do you like the hypothesis that Birmingham didn't turn out as many of its own teachers as the Welsh areas did? And Birmingham, at stages in the 50s and 60s, were advertising in Wales.
Really?
One, two, three, a there, 4, 5, 6, a there, 7, 8, 9, a there, back to Nebuchadnezzar to get the juice. Bought his wife a pair of shoes. When the shoes began to wear, Nebuchadnezzar bought a chair. When the chair began to wear, Nebuchadnezzar bought a gate. And the way I dropped it, somebody must have picked it up and put it in their pocket. Sleep, sleep, rocky, rocky.
There are many black people in our multicultural city today, but it wasn't like that in the 1920s when Ben Benny was growing up in Ockley. We took him back to the street he come out of, Farm Street.
When I
had some drinks around
when
it.
I was a kid, like, I used to sit on that step, right, and I used to wait till they come out because I used to get pennies off them and that, because I was unique. Now the joke was, on a Saturday night there used to be a chap there, and he used to come in and strip down to the waist, right, and he used to show his back off like that, and And it got all little blue marks where it had the cat because he was one of the Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
And the Peaky Blinders from Summer Lane.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What was it like as a black kid growing up in Brum?
Rough. Because of the simple reason, when I walk round, like, I mean, okay, round here, the kids got to know me, you know, after a bit. But as soon as I went out, like, I'd be going up to school up Will Street, just what's it to the school, and you get kids calling after you and what's it, and you were chasing, fighting, you were fighting from morning till bloody night.
Birmingham's a big city, but each of its districts has got the flavour of a village, and they're drawn together by major shopping thoroughfares. Ladypool Road for Sparkbrook, Coventry Road for Smallheath. And these shopping thoroughfares were more than places where people went to buy and sell things. They were exciting places where youngsters on a Friday and a Saturday night would get their glad rags on and go for a walk along what they called the Monkey Run, the place where they'd try and click with a member of the opposite sex.
Well, you just go like this and flick your hair back and do, you know, go your eye and make believe you're shy, you know. Well, you are shy then. And they'd whistle you and then you'd stop and they'd come up to you. And if you fancy them, you'd go and walk with it. If you didn't, you'd turn your nose up and bugger off.
Just as Dickens wrote mostly about Victorian London, so too have people written about 20th century Brum. Kathleen Dayers, what made you start writing about your past?
Well, when I went to my daughter's one Christmas, the grandchildren were all opening out the beautiful presents. And I said, you are lucky children to have beautiful presents like this. I said, I never had lovely things like this. I said, I never even had a doll. So she said, I don't believe that, Nan. I said, one of these days I'll write all about it. Oh, yes, she says, you do, Nan. She said, and let me have it. So when I went home in the boxing morning, I got some exercise book out the drawer and I started writing bits and pieces.
How many copies of your book you sold, Kathleen?
I couldn't tell you exactly, but there's thousands.
Really?
Yes. Because they've got them now in talking books.
Talking books as well, yeah.
Yes.
There's not many older women write books at their age.
No, no.
What do you think makes you a bit different?
Well, it's imprinted on my mind. I can't forget my past at all. And I never shall. I can still remember the times we used to go begging up in the street, outside factories, for bread, because we were starving, because Mother had 13 of us. And we were starving. And I used to stop outside the factory, outside opposite the school, when we come out of school, and we used to beg for food.
At the age of 92, she's still writing about her people, an inspiration to every Brummie.
Old Aston Cross, I know it well. There's the cross and the clock and the constant smell of HB sauce and Ansell's brewing. The sound of the little factories doing the bit to boost the city trade, because there's a million things that are Brummagem made.
Remember that walk up the old Coventry Road, from Watery Lane to Old Knowe Road, up past the Kingston, past the Blues, rows of old shops, plenty to choose.
The Cross, it's a lovely place to shop. There's all kinds of stores like the Brum Co-op, Birds the Tailors to buy your suits, Timpson's selling shoes and boots, Randall's could print you a testimonial while you changed your coupons at the Home and Colonial.
Weaving in and out of traffic, she did an half course. If you don't get a move on, you'll get hit by a bus. So crossing the Cove, one had to be nifty, run for your life, or get thumped by a 60.
Let's go to Cannon Hill Park and have a boat out on the lake. I'll get the tea and sandwiches and some of them chocolate biscuits we'll take. Can we go and see the birds? Can we? Can we please? Mum smiled and said, we'll see, we'll see. Oh, she was a tease. I liked to paddle in the River Ray. In the summer it was quite warm. It was nice in the park and I loved it, but not when there was a storm.
I was born in the back streets of Brummagem, in a 2 up, 2 down, back to back. They said life was hard with a bog down the yard, and at night we slept under Dad's mack. But I'm proud of the city I come from, with forward our motto unfurled. When they say where you're from, I tell them, chum, I'm a Brummie, the best in the world. And here we are in God's country in Saltley.
Now, the best part about this place, Mal, is it's halfway between Sparkbrook and Aston.
Get on! Listen, actually, I've got to own up here and say that we're not actually, at this present time, in Saltley.
I know, you're just an imitation Saltley kid.
Yeah.
We're in Nechells here.
Yeah, that's right.
Now,
yeah.
what worries me, and looking at the back here, there's the River Ray, the boundary, between Nechells and Saltley. Where is it?
Where's what?
Where's the River Ray?
It's in Nechells.
No, but where's it gone?
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah.
I've got to do this all the time with this bloke.
Listen, I'll tell you where it is.
It's culverted.
It's culverted underground, yes. I don't understand words like that going in Saltley. We're actually at the site of Saltley Docks. Now, Saltley Docks, for those of you who don't know, was at one time one of this country's major fishing ports. I'll grant you it's got a bit silted up now, but years and years ago you could come down to Saltley Docks and watch the native fishermen landing their catch. Mind you, the best bit was to go down to Gas Street Basin and watch them pearl diving.
Well, I was going to say, what did they get down there?
Cutting their heads open on the bike frames. It was great. Yeah, well, look, there's Kathy Williams over there. She can tell us more about Saltley Docks. Kathy, what are you doing?
I'm weeding, Malcolm.
You are weeding? I thought you planted them, actually.
No, I haven't.
So why? What's all this?
This is all part of the Saltley Pools project that I'm involved in.
Right, now Saltley Pools is really where Saltley Docks used to be, but it's a bit different to the way I remember it as a kid.
It is, right. I mean, the Saltley Docks used to be the other side of the canal. Yeah. They're not there anymore. They're actually filled in when they built the new road. Saltley Docks are quite interesting because that's where the boats used to come up the canal and get rid of all the coal. It was all across there, and then when they'd offload, they'd actually bring it across this bridge here.
And wagons would pick it up then and cart it away?
That's right.
That's how coal was used in those days, wasn't it? That's how gas was made, by burning off the coal, and then we'd sell off the coke afterwards, which was the byproduct.
That's correct, yeah.
And of course, Saltley engine sheds as well, the loco sheds at Saltley, the coal was used there for the trains.
That's right, used in all sorts of places for all sorts of purposes, that's right, yes.
It's a shame in a way that all that's gone now, and those famous docks, but at least you're still managing to keep the area alive.
Well, that's the idea of the Saltley Pools, really. It's to recreate, in a sense, the Saltley Docks, although obviously we haven't got the boats and barges coming up here. But it's an amenity for the local community to come and actually use.
Come on, lad, and bring your tool bag. Keep your eyes peeled, use your head. Fetch your footprints, spanners, chisels. From now on, they'll earn your bread. Keep your eye on the older fitters. They're the boys who know their stuff. One day you will do their job if you are smart and keen enough. Wake up, lad, and take your place among the men who serve the trade. Scalers, cokers, valvesmen, stokers, this is where the gas is made. Keep your eye on the old fair weather, mind your gauge, you're on the town. Turn her out, bang on 450, or you'll let the housewife down.
Everywhere you seem to look in Birmingham, there are canals. In fact, we're supposed to have more canals than Venice. But what an important influence on Birmingham our canals have had. The day this canal opened, the price of coal per hundredweight halved. But if canals no longer transport raw materials and finished goods, what they do is bring in tourists. Modern Brummies know this as a science museum, but once it was the world-famous factory of the Elkington cousins. They had an idea about silver plating, and it became reality after they went for funding to Sir Josiah Mason, the renowned steel pen nib manufacturer. A kid from Kidderminster who'd once hawked vegetables and had now made good. Josiah Mason wasn't the only manufacturer who invested in industry. So too did Samson Lloyd, an ironmaster, and John Taylor, the Brummage and Button King. In the 1760s, they founded the bank which is now Lloyd's Bank. And other banks also started in this city of Birmingham, the Midland and Barclays amongst them. Many of Birmingham's success stories began in working class neighbourhoods. Joseph Hudson was a toolmaker who had come out of Ladywood. In the washhouse by the side of his own, he turned his hand to anything, and one of the things he made there was whistles. Today the firm he founded is world famous for the Metropolitan Police whistle, and most of all perhaps for the Acme Thunderer football referee's whistle. Offside!
Well, I'm Ron Eamonson and I'm the Managing Director of FL&E Small Limited. And the company, in fact the business, started 125 years ago this year. There was an old wiremaster, his name was Edgar Small, and he started off in number 71 Moseley Street, which was an old back-to-back house. And eventually, as time went by, he acquired the other two properties, and there was a public house on the corner of Moseley Street and Lombard Street, which was called the Freemasons' Arms. The original factory was, in fact, in this part. They were just the little tiny outhouses, and in fact, up there, where the bedrooms and the other little rooms of the houses were. And through the First World War and before that, people worked in those. This company employed something like 50 or 60 people, ladies working on containers and baskets for the war effort in the First World War, and also creating products long before that.
The man who runs this company has the name of his great-great-grandfather who founded the firm.
Funnily enough, neither my great-grandfather, my grandfather or my father were called Samuel in any way. I've been called it for better or for worse, and as I say, I'm the fifth involved. I do have two sons, but perhaps unfortunately they're not going to go into this particular business. They have their own careers. Perhaps 5 heats is enough for anybody. It has been difficult, as we all know, for all industry over the last years, but it is a question of changing, and that means everybody having to change, or every member of the company, and that's what Birmingham's always been particularly good at. And our people have changed fantastically over the years in the flexibility in which they're prepared to work.
It may not look like brass. That's because Samuel Heath had the first chrome plating plant in Birmingham in 1929. A.B. Road, the shortest street name in Birmingham. So called because it's the boundary between the parish of Aston and the parish of Birmingham. And across the way is the original street sign dating back to 1764. It's in a factory owned by Gabriel and Company, a family who have a long history of manufacturing in Birmingham.
Originally, the Winfield family came from Loughborough, and this gentleman here, Edward Winfield, was the first one to come to Birmingham. His grandson, Robert Walter Winfield, in the picture behind us, started a very large and successful engineering company in Cambridge Street, which is now on the site occupied by the ICC. Unfortunately, we don't own the land anymore, but he built it up into a very large and successful company. Employing many hundreds of people. He was apparently a good employer, having Sunday schools and that sort of thing for the children of his work people, and became famous for the high quality of his brass bedding, gas lights, general engineering. I think he had coal wards and that sort of thing.
Now, Anthony Gabriel, you're chairman of this company. What do you make today?
Gabriel and Company are manufacturers of stainless steel hand railing and castings. We have got the only steel foundry in the centre of Birmingham, for example. My grandfather started the business 110 years ago when he purchased a brass foundry company for about £270 odd, and we built it up today to a company with a turnover of over £2.5 million.
So I'll just sit back and dream, forget the houses in between, and be a working class millionaire. Now when we get to working class, sing it with a bit of pride, all right? If there's anybody from Sutton, you can just sing millionaire and we'll understand. You know Sutton? where they take the ashes out to the bin in a briefcase. Lovely place. It's all fur coat and no nip. It is, isn't it? So, all right, and we'll give it a little try. All right, dead easy this, and here it goes. I don't want to be a clown, a conductor or a spark. Life's too short for working who knows where. So I'll just sit back and dream, forget the houses in between, and be a working class millionaire. People say to me, what the hell you gonna be? When I tell them I see laughter in their eyes. If you want an explanation, I found my true vocation, though the answer seems to take them by surprise. There ain't no good jobs to be found round Bordesley Green or Old Newtown, except a councillor, magistrate or mayor. So I just sit and laugh, cause what I'd really like not half's to be a working class millionaire. And I don't want to be a clown, a conductor or a spark. Life's too short for working who knows where. So I'll just sit back and dream, forget the houses in between, and be a working class millionaire.
Most people associate BSA with bicycles and motorbikes. A lot of people know that BSA means Birmingham Small Arms. Well, the bikes and the motorbikes are now gone, but the BSA is still making air rifles and air pistols to send across the world. Ken White, tell me about the gun you've got in your hand.
Well, Carl, this is the top of the range. It's the Gold Star. And it's a 10-shot magazine. And you probably guessed, we call it the Gold Star after our BSA Goldie, the famous motorcycle of the 50s and 60s. This gun is the British Army 303, which was used in the First World War and also for 2 or 3 years in the Second World War. The very famous BSA one is the Martini Henry, and this is the gun that you will have seen on the film Zulu. This is the oldest gun that we've got in our collection, and on there you can see the date, BSA 1872. This is the original air gun. It was made by BSA roughly in 1906.
Johnny Parker, you've been working at the BSA since 1942. How has gun making changed in the time you've been here?
Well, the actual manufacture of rifles, it hasn't changed that much. There are more modern processes now, obviously, but in those days we were making the Lee Enfield rifle, you see, and for the Army. And as a matter of fact, the one that I had when I was called up and in the Army was made by the BSA.
Although the BSA was in Small Heath, most of Birmingham's sporting gun makers were to be found around Lancaster Street in the city centre. In the same way, most of Birmingham's jewellers were gathered in a distinct quarter in Hockley. That's where the manufacturing jewellers of Smith and Pepper are to be found, now a working museum.
I started here in 1956 as the office junior, and I left in 1965. And when I came back 4 years ago to do the job for the museum, I couldn't believe that it was exactly as it was when I'd left in 1965. Because it's been preserved in the way that it was when it was working, it gives the general public a feeling of how jewellery was made years ago. But there are still small firms that are working exactly the same way today. The only thing that's missing are the people who are working here. You can see the machinery working, you can see the demonstrator actually making a piece of jewellery, and just generally having the history of how the jewellery quarter was.
Great King Street, once the workplace of 5,000 people who all came here because Joseph Lucas in 1878 started to produce the King of the Road bicycle lamp. It's now empty. Nobody works here anymore. But Joseph Lucas's legacy remains in the international company bearing his name. The memories of Great King Street remain too, in the paintings of Ron Smith.
Everybody knows that. Everybody, you talk about Hockley, you talk about Lucas's.
Yeah.
It was an institution. When I went to school in Burberry Street, they used to come round and they started the Harry Lucas School. And they used to pick the pupils from there to go into the Lucas industry.
Really?
Yep.
Ron, what makes you paint pictures such as these?
Well, truthful, Carl, hold the memory of Hockley.
Yeah.
That's what it's for.
I tell you what I love, it's like the little bit at the bottom, the Birmingham Mail and the dog running across.
Yeah, that's just one thing with me and my paintings. I've got to get the intricate detail in. I've got to put the little bit about the Birmingham Mail, the little bit about this and the others, such as the Co-op and Shake Shacks, Tippers, and all the rest of the places. You just got to, else otherwise it's not a picture. I'm not going to say I'm the best artist in the world, but I do like detail. I do like people to say, oh yeah, I remember that, Ron, you know, and this is absolutely fantastic when they do this for me.
So many of Birmingham's landmarks have disappeared. The River Ray, you can hardly see it now. And did you know that once we had more hills than Rome, but can you see them today? They've gone beneath roads like this one, the Inner Ring Road, which collars the city centre of Birmingham. And before a flyover was built, the central fire station dominated the middle of Corporation Street. Corporation Street itself was an example of redevelopment. In the 1870s, some of the worst slums in the city were knocked down to make way for a Parisian-style boulevard. The Great Western Arcade was built off it as a high-class shopping centre that has become familiar to generations of Brummies. The cutting of Corporation Street extended the city centre because until then, most of the retailers were found in Bull Street and parts of New Street and High Street. Birmingham's city centre remains small, although now it's spreading out as the Inner Ring Road's collar is broken at last. Broad Street, the centre of modern Birmingham. But even here, there are buildings which remind us of our city's past. The Brass House, the Glassworks. And the ever-changing image of Birmingham is not a new thing. In the 1820s, a music hall artist called James Dobbs wrote a song called I Can't Find Brummagem. And in it, he had many verses in which he lamented the loss of familiar streets and faces. It's something that most Brummies even today can identify with. We still can't find Brummagem.
Birmingham to me means everything. I was born here, lived here, done 6 years in the army for Birmingham, I think.
You've got BBC. I've got, Birmingham-born Chinese #1 son and Birmingham-born Chinese #2 son. And Birmingham means a lot to me. I'm proud to be a Brummie.
It was the original centre for engineering, and as far as I'm concerned, we're still the best engineers in the world.
You know, it's our own muck heap. If we can't make things work here, we can't make it work anywhere, I shouldn't think.
It's the greatest place out, and I've been around them all. I've travelled to on the continent, and I've been the Middle East and the East and all that, and London, and you can stuff London and all them places. As far as I'm concerned, Birmingham's my place.
I can't stand this present day Birmingham. It's nothing to me now. It's nothing. I'd love to go back how it was.
I just love it. It's my town and I love it.
Birmingham has done so much for me. I want to do something back. Simple as that.
I was born in a Brummagem courtyard that was built in Victoria's days. The back-to-back houses in crumbling bricks which seldom saw the sun's rays. Them lads played something like football, scored goals with some brick and our tin, tore holes in our Ramsey Town clothing. We had bruises, cuts
on our shins. And the wenches put dolls round our courtyard. They'd beat 'em, scold 'em and nag, and treat them like real proper babbies. All the dolls made of sawdust and rag. Then a man from the council decided that all on us lived in a slum. So he pulled down our Brummagem courtyard. We were scattered all over Old Brum. That's something that people call progress. But I'd go back today if I could, to play Molly's, tip cat, and up, skip and jump in the courtyard down Old Lady Wood. And the wenches put dolls round the courtyard. They'd beat 'em, scold 'em and nag, and treat them like real proper babbies. Oh, the dolls made of sawdust and rag. Oh, the dolls made of sawdust and rag.
If there's a smile on your face, you got warmth in your embrace, you feel at home in this place, then you're okay. If you got time for other folks, and you don't mind being the butt of the jokes, and you're just one of the blokes, then you're okay. Only fools can't understand our friendly situation. They think caring, sharing, even grinning and bearing is way below their station. If there's a song in your heart you can sing when the teardrops start, your world will never fall apart, 'cause you're okay. So pull up a floorboard, sit yourself down. What we have is yours. We live happily without a front door key, you see. We never lock the doors. If there's a song in your heart you can sing when the teardrops start, your world will never fall apart.